In 2014, Monolith Productions released Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. The story is based on the world created by J.R.R. Tolkien, the famous author who gave us The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings books. But the most unique selling point of the Shadow of Mordor game was the Nemesis System. The game mechanic turned the random orcs into unique antagonists for the players, and this kind of drew more player engagement and just made it more unique in general. But apart from that, the game copied a lot of game mechanics to make it its own. However, after several years of trying, Warner Bros. Games have successfully secured a patent on the Nemesis System, and it goes on into effect on February 23rd, 2021.
Ooh,
yep.
It's not far away.
I know. So what we're going to do, Luke, we're going to talk about if this is going to be a turning point in the game industry and how it will affect it. And I'm just going to say this, Luke.
Yeah.
This is
You were so that whole intro deal was so like peaceful and put together, and then you just come with that.
Well, I had to because it is, isn't it? It is. It's just BS, to be honest.
Yeah. It's rubbish. I think it's sort of like it's like the unspoken rule when it comes to modern game designs and whatnot, that when you design like a game mechanic, you don't patent it and then start really trying to prevent small developers or even big AAA developers from using that mechanic or being inspired by that mechanic.
Exactly. Like, to be honest, like, what's the point? There's so many games that use different games mechanics, but the difference is that, like, what makes it different from like the original? Like, how many bloody battle royale games there are? There's so many, but there's an audience for each one of them. It doesn't hinder the developer at any way. And Shadow of Mordor is such a funny game because this game is not really original. It's not original at all.
A lot of it is so inspired by Assassin's Creed.
I know.
It's ridiculous. Imagine if when Ubisoft came out and with Assassin's Creed back there, and they just started putting patents up for patenting things like parkouring and all those sort of elements that Assassin's Creed was well known for back then and all that. Like, it would be crazy.
I know. Or just like something weird like blending with crowds or something like that. Like, it's just it's a desperate corporation thing to do, and that's what we have to blame. We have to blame more Warner Brothers more than Monolith, because I'm pretty sure they don't care. They're developers. You know, they were inspired by Assassin's Creed and Batman because they loved those games, and that's fair enough. But Warner Brothers wants to take it into their own hands.
Yeah, it's interesting because how it could work is it essentially could give Warner Bros. Games the way to start charging competitors, no matter how big or small, a license to use the Nemesis system. But if they don't, they could simply just try and take them to court or whatnot. But I think at the same time, because it's such, I have looked into like the language and stuff like that, and it is pretty vague. Especially since they didn't really create the system properly in the first place. It's not. I know they refined it and whatnot, but it has existed in the past. And it's already being used by other studios where you've got Watch Dogs Legion, where they basically, when you recruit, you can recruit any person in the game, and obviously you got unique mercenaries in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So it's not exactly like it's only been done by Warner Brothers.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it could effectively be pretty meaningless in that sense, that it might just cause a bit of a hassle and a headache. But I don't know how enforceable this patent is going to be.
I know. I'm just hoping it doesn't stick, and I'm just hoping it doesn't affect the indie developers. Because, like, to be honest, they don't really have the finance to like back themselves up if it goes legally, and they shouldn't, because like creating games is kind of like a freedom to the developer. Like, you shouldn't be hindered just because you haven't thought of an original idea. Now, how many bloody racing games are there? You're telling me that every racing game's a unique racing game? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's been like, I think that's the one thing with the movie, with the gaming industry that it benefits from, is that it's always innovating like mechanics that have existed for how long now. Like, I know Phantasmal start throwing around all these different mechanics from The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Okay. But without getting into that, a lot of the mechanics from that game and whatnot have all been refined. But imagine if back then Nintendo just did what Warner Brothers has done essentially, and they really enforce it as much as they can to the law, and then it would just halt so much innovation.
Exactly, yeah. Like you just said, like, you can't use dungeons anymore because we've used it now. It'd just be like all of those good games would just not exist. I don't understand their process of it. I'm guessing, I don't know if it's them trying to protect their only unique selling point, or it's like you said, for them to maybe get people to approach them with a game, but them wanting to use that mechanic. I don't actually see their premise here.
I think Warner Brothers, I think a lot of it has been driven from what you said. It's a bit more corporate, because from a gaming point of view, it doesn't make a lot of sense that you have to remember that they had to, I think they started to file for it. Was it in 2014 they started to file for it?
Yeah, I think straight like after the game was
several
released.
Years ago. Yeah, exactly. And they essentially had to adjust it quite a few times and refile its application before it even got accepted. So it'll be interesting to see just how effective it could be to enforce in a court. Yeah. Because they've obviously, like, it's not as easy as just going up to one of these offices and getting yourself a patent, or is it a patent?
Yeah, patent.
You can't just get a patent straight away. Like, you have to be really specific with the invention that you've created or a process that you've created. You can't just get given one.
Exactly.
And so because of that, especially, and that's why it's hard to do for gaming. You don't get a lot of gaming stuff that you can get. There's not a lot of patents for it because it's so hard to put the correct language to it and to enforce it correctly, because like it's such an innovative industry. Yeah, and it's just everyone will be inspired by everyone's mechanics that they use.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it goes down to like tech as well. Like, you're limited by the tech you have, so like you can't really patent something from like 20 years ago, really, because it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you're basically limiting how technology works as well. Like, it's like how iPhones would say, like, oh, you can't use any touch screens now. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Apple went through a pretty big, I think that was around towards the end of the Steve Jobs era, right, where they were just, I felt like they spent more time just dropping patents on everything than actually innovating.
I mean, they did.
It's one of those things, but then it just hulks it all.
Exactly.
And I think Warner Brothers have really messed up here.
Yeah, they have,
It'll be interesting to see what the other big studios' reaction will be to this. I mean, like I said, I'll be very surprised if this ever holds up. If Warner Brothers tried to take EA to court over them using a Nemesis system that was somewhat similar, I really would be surprised if they would get a foregone conclusion anytime soon. Like, I feel like it would be such a waste of time to pursue.
No, it would be,
So I just don't understand why I do it, because I think it doesn't seem very practical.
No.
It's terrible for PR.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, all of the gamers, like, all of their sales will go down if this is an actual proper thing. Like, if they're being very strict about it, like, it will just affect Monolith's games in the future, and that's just harsh on them, because they didn't make the final decision. I'm sure they didn't go like, oh, we really want to like patent this because, you know, it's ours. Like, I'm sure they didn't say that. Yeah. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think they did.
No, when it comes to gamers, content creators, or whatever, if you're always trying to hinder innovation in that sense, it very rarely ever makes you look good. Just random. When it comes to this, I know we've done so much Minecraft recently, Bill, but there was, the trend 100 days.
Yes,
yeah, so the YouTuber that came up with that, Luke the Notable, he basically tried to patent that.
Yeah, so I've heard of this,
Have you seen it? Yeah. And it came out, everyone was furious, and he eventually said he's got rid of it, he just wanted to protect it, it never makes anyone look good when you try and patent something where other people have taken your idea to innovate on it further. Like, it's not like you're stealing from someone. You're just taking the concept and you're going a bit further with it. It's how YouTube would work in general. It's how gaming works in general. It never makes you look good. Why do they do it?
I don't know. I think I don't know what it is. It's weird. I think it's a touch of jealousy in a sense because like depending on the creator you are, just by like how the way you make a video, it could just be better than the original person.
Yeah.
You know? So maybe it's just a touch of jealousy. But when it comes to games, then I just don't understand why. Because regardless, you're always gonna have an audience, no matter how big or small your audience is. I think the game industry does a good job of recognizing who started that process. Yeah.
I think that's I think the gaming industry is probably the one industry where it's very, 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 very hard to be original in creating something. Someone in Scandinavia or wherever has probably created a random mechanic in a random indie game that you have no idea about, but someone's probably done what you've done first. But all you're doing is refining whatever that is. And imagine if we had to live in a world where we had to source the license for every mechanic we want to implement in a game. It would be no one would ever want to develop a game again.
No, it will just and it and it will just hurt the game industry as a whole because there's so many indie companies that just put out a game and it's the next big thing, just by putting patterns like this, I don't think it'll go through.
It's not a great
it's not.
They've got it. It's gone through.
Yeah, but I don't think
I'll be very
long term.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see a lot of cases where they've successfully sued or taken someone to court about them using a system like their Nemesis system. I'll be very, very surprised if it ever gets that. I just can't see it holding up. And if they try and like take an indie developer down, you'll probably get like on social media a load of games lawyers will come in to help them before you get funny. It just won't be worth the hassle.
No, it won't.
It won't be. People will stand up for each other in that sense, and otherwise you just get more out, and it's just more negative PR.
Yep.
Like, should we just go into PR deal? I feel like we should just go into PR. I feel like Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers gaming division, really needs it. Ever since the whole, actually no, I was about to say Batman, but that was Rocksteady with their failed launch. But I feel like Warner Brothers need some PR advice here because they're going down the wrong path.
No, absolutely. Like, I mean, honestly, Ubisoft could sue them for all of the parkour mechanics. And then what are they going to do?
And then you're just going to get cases after case. And let me tell you something: when you go to court in America, it's not expensive. I mean, it is expensive. Sorry, it is very expensive when you're going through the courts with the lawyers and whatnot. So I don't know. I think Warner Brothers are probably never going to enforce it properly. I feel like I'm hoping they've gauged at the reaction from developers and fans alike, and realised that they done fucked up. Yeah. But do you think this idea could stick at all? No. In any way possible? I don't think it will. Just to play devil's advocate, Just to play devil's advocate, you little boy. No, I don't think it will. Just because, like we've already said, the game industry is so innovative with all these mechanics, and if everyone started to try and do it, it will just become an absolute shit show. You probably get idiots like Warner Brothers that pop up and try to make a stand on this area, but I personally think they're wasting their time, and it's just not going to be worth the potential legal costs and the negative PR they would get. I don't think even EA, even though they don't seem like they care about their PR here and there, I think they wouldn't go down something like this route because I just don't see the benefit, to be honest. Really don't see the benefit. Yeah, it just puts them in a worse position than they actually started. It does. So there's no point. Yeah, it does. No point. It does. So after this, me and you need to go and just start patenting everything that we do on the channel, deal. You know? Oh yeah. Like the more you know, there hasn't been any discussion channels from now on, so we're gonna. No, we've done it first. Yeah, we are the first ones to do something like this. We're gonna patent it first, and then start licensing this format out to everyone. Yeah. It's not a game. It's a rich thing.